if you don't think about how you want to grow, then you will miss the beauty of the growth.
Perfect.
Welcome to the Mizell Show.
An inspiration for a new generation.
Hi, I'm Alana Mizell, a loving mother of two, a devoted wife to Stephen, and an entrepreneur helping women realize their dreams and potential.
And I'm Stephen Mizell, caring father of two, a devoted husband to Alana, and a driving force to help young men prepare for life after college football.
And if that wasn't enough, we're a biracial couple.
She was raised in the North, but I was raised in the South.
The only thing normal about our lives, who am I kidding? It's never normal around here. Join us for the Mizell Show.
Right now. Remember how to do this?
Yeah. Whew, it's been a minute. I just clicked the wrong button.
It's been
Click
a
record.
minute. We took
But-
a break off for the holiday.
But it's...
What is that? What is that?
That's a horn and excitement. This is our 100th episode.
This is our 100.
This is our Benjamin.
This is our Benjamin. This is our 100th episode.
That was really funny to me.
I don't think it was. All about the Benjamins. Boy.
Somebody else laughed.
Somebody else might have laughed.
Listening.
They haven't heard our voices in a while.
Oh my gosh.
And here we are with number 100.
Okay, just to
Wow.
recap, I feel like... So November 2020 is when we launched this podcast.
Yep.
You were working for the University of Memphis football program.
Yes.
I was only working with Saint.
Yes.
We now both have corporate jobs.
Yes.
And
Instagram Live was a thing. It's not a thing
Instagram
anymore.
Live was a thing. It's
Yes,
not.
we started this
Reels
because-
weren't even there yet.
Yes, we started this based on
What?
you know COVID, and then the Instagram Live. People were like, oh,
And
I enjoy
TikTok
the
was
banters.
Lil Baby.
TikTok wasn't even
Little
thing.
baby.
Yeah.
It was a
It's-
thing, but it was a little baby.
Instagram Lives
Okay.
were the thing back then, though.
And, okay, so we just had our very basic website
Yep.
at the time.
Yep.
We didn't have any of our sweatshirts, any of our stickers, any of our merch, which you can get that on
I don't even
the
think we had a
Mizell.
website when we first started.
Yes, we did. Yes, we
You
did.
did?
Because I sat there and I did it.
Okay.
You can get all of our merch and those kinds of things on the MizellShow.com.
You can. We have not released anything about 100th episode, so don't go in there looking for a 100 special golden hoodie because it's not there.
A golden hoodie.
I mean, somebody want a golden hoodie. Like, I got the golden ticket, like Willy Wonka kind of thing.
Willy Wonka flavors.
Willy
Willy
Wonka
Wonka
got a
bedhead
flavor.
haters.
Hey, but no, we are on 100 episodes, and when we first
100th
started this,
episode.
Alana forgot that I had a mass common degree that I could edit these podcasts. and
Totally
we
forgot.
Were just
I
like,
was trying to teach myself
let's
how to
just
edit. And
do
I was
it.
like, what? I married a guy who knows how?
And we are here. And we've had quite the journey. I feel like we've grown so much based on the people we interview, the people we interact with.
Oh my gosh. I'm a totally different person than I was November 2020.
Yeah.
And I think everybody is, but especially when you're living your life in...
That was almost 4 years ago.
No, it was just barely 3 years ago.
When November 2024 is going to be 4 years.
Which is a whole 11 months from now.
I guess you're right. You're right. Sorry about that. No math. Yeah, you're right.
So it was 3, but it's still 3
It's
years
still
is
3
a
years,
long time.
And that's one thing that our mentor, Dominic Lawson, said.
We mention him every
We should.
single episode. I love him so much.
But like, for real though, he said like most podcasts don't go past episode 10 or 15.
Yeah, it's something small. Episode 75 is like a gigantic hurdle.
Yeah.
And then it's like less than, under 10% make it to 100 episodes.
Yeah. Kelly English was like episode 50. I remember
He
that one. He
was.
was so
Oh
excited.
my gosh.
It was a good episode.
Yes. It was a fantastic episode.
Yes.
Go back and listen to Kelly English episode 50.
I
That's crazy.
can't ask you what's your favorite episode out of 100. Can I?
Oh, gosh.
Ooh.
There was one, I don't remember which number it was, but there was one in particular that we deep dove into depression.
Yes.
And it was soon after I had to double my medication for my depression. I was on Trintellix. For those that don't know, you can always go back and listen to those kind of early on. Mm-hmm. But I think it was one of the rawest episodes from my point of view.
Yeah.
Because there was at one point, I don't remember what phrase kind of came out, but I just remember saying, I'm not broken.
Yeah.
And like just being angry at how society sees depression, but also just raw and vulnerable and the reality of how mental health ebbs and flows. And now, 3 years later, I'm not currently on depression medication, which we have a deeper dive into that in an episode coming up. So you guys can learn more about what we're doing now. And the reason being is part of it was just to see how it would go.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds terrifying to everybody, and it is terrifying. And there's always I think it's really important for people to hear that there's always the option to get back on it.
Yeah,
It's not going to hurt you to get on and off it, taper off, talk to your doctor. I am not a doctor, but what if you need it? Great, get back on it. And Steve and I just didn't...
What would your life feel like if you never took that chance to see what it would look like that you didn't need it?
Right,
like you're
because
saying. Yeah.
what I didn't realize is that I should have been seeing a psychiatrist to manage my medication. Somebody who is... When you think about psychiatry and depression, not that this is a mental health episode by any stretch, but I think a lot of our podcast does talk about these life things and really teaching about different life things that we've gone through and kind of helping coach in whether it be personal, professional, life development.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's super important and kind of something I've learned throughout this podcast and needing to dig deeper into myself, into you, into our marriage, into life, because when you do a podcast the way that we have, it requires continuous research.
Yeah.
Like you can't just sleep on the world and expect to show up and communicate.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've learned is that there are, you have your doctor that's a GP, a general practitioner, and they go to school for X number of years. And then they can go to a residency after, and they can specialize in something after that.
Yeah.
And so a psychiatrist is essentially along those lines. They are the ones that have specialized essentially in how your brain reacts to these medications.
Yeah.
So to have depression, anxiety medications without seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist is really doing yourself a disservice. And I didn't realize that until after I got off medication. Let me just say that again. I didn't realize that until after I got off medication. Neither did my therapist. It was kind of something that we just hadn't talked about.
And I think it also goes back to just walking us through like this podcast, this journey to 100 episodes. This conversation you had that brought this to light with you was through another doctor friend who I think is one of the most realistic doctors that we know. And she's also very, very open to realize like we are still humans and we are broken as doctors, but you also have to, make sure you're putting yourself in the right position to talk to them. So and we talked to her, did we realize, oh, this is the track, this is where you should go to. But we say all that because it was just communication, just talking to people.
It's really just knowledge. And I think it's almost like we need to have home ec back in high schools and college, but we also need to have this kind of life skills course outside of just economics.
Yeah.
Because economics and balancing a budget, gosh, does every class need that? Like if anybody wants to hire me as a high school teacher to kind of teach a life skills class, you just let me know. Everybody's going to learn how to sew button all the way to how to balance a checkbook, not a checkbook, but
balance an account. Yeah.
Balance an account, a Google Doc, things you need to think about, what life insurance looks like. But also, here are the kinds of doctors that you may want to look towards.
Yeah.
So you have pediatricians, but as an adult, there's specific general practitioners outside of that specialize in adults. Anybody know that? No, I didn't know that till recently. And that's kind of how the psychiatrist conversation came up, because I got off my medication and it was almost like I was just sleeping.
Yeah.
I was sleeping for 2 years. And like, as somebody who is...
And people say sleeping, like, you sometimes have a brain fog and you don't realize that fog is there.
Y'all, I didn't realize that I could hear birds the way that I was hearing them. Like, that sounds so ridiculous, but it's true. And even emotions. Like, I didn't realize I'm a very emotional up and down person, of course. I have depression and anxiety. But in general, even on the best day, I'm a super animated person, if you know me in real life. Much more than this podcast can even articulate. It's like the first half of this podcast when I'm cracking jokes, like that's typically me. But on this medication, it was pretty flatline.
It's pretty flatline. There was no ebbs and flows.
There was definitely no deep.
No.
It kind of just stayed at baseline. And so I didn't cry a lot. So now I feel like I'm making up for all the times I didn't cry over 3 years. I cry all the time. I've cried like 3 times today. My son went to school and he was crying, so I was crying. I had cried twice before that.
Yeah.
Cried on the Peloton because a good song came on.
I know you cried. I didn't know you cried with Allie Love on the Peloton.
I cry almost every time I ride our Peloton. By the way, we got it resale. You can do that. All about bikes. We're going to throw in a little
plug for
thing
you. How about that? Yes,
they're amazing.
They're amazing. Yes.
But yeah, almost every time. And there's a lot of research. You guys can do your own research. Yet again, this probably needs to be another whole topic about somatic therapy and like the tension that we carry in our hips when it comes to trauma responses, specifically women. So when you do things like cycling, which require your hips to kind of release and move, it can release emotions, whether it be high highs or low lows. Or it can be just in the middle and your body needs to cry.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a fantastic song, which I have now added to my playlist of the one I Don't Wanna.
Yeah.
When I Don't Wanna. But I was crying. It's like a jam.
It's a jam.
It's Imagine Dragons.
Imagine Dragons.
It's a jam.
It's a jam. It's a
You
jam.
haven't even heard it.
I haven't heard
told
it.
you. Y'all, it's a techno song. And I'm crying. Because I just needed to.
You needed to.
But on the medication, I couldn't.
No, you would have felt that. Yeah.
But Alana circa November 2020. I mean, who is she?
Yeah.
Like, who is that child?
No,
That has essentially no hair in her head because she is totally at a beyond deficit of nourishment.
Mental nourishment, also physical nourishment. Yeah. And that's something that you look back on. Like, you always want to just recap, like this is 100 episodes. And we had a moment this morning. We were discussing, where I was when we started this podcast. And it's kind of come.
I feel like for us, this podcast, when we started it, not to compare it to like massive tragedies, but there are times in your life, like your wedding day, the day that your kids are born. I feel like I will remember our first time recording.
Oh, yes.
Forever.
Forever, yes.
Forever.
And then you listen to your first episode, be like, who is that person?
Oh, I cannot go back.
You can't go back?
I had to like update some SEO stuff, and I was like, what?
What was I saying? Who was that person? But no, so this...
You almost want to like archive.
This archive your own voices. So this, it's one of those things where you want to be growing and you want to be challenging yourself and actually reflecting on your, previous, let's say, life, previous goals, whatever you want to call it. But this weekend, the National College Football Conference is in Nashville. And 3 years ago, it was in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And, reflecting on that moment when I was there, I think I'm a pretty outgoing person. Like, I think I'm pretty easy to meet new people, pretty easy to talk to people and connect. I would say going to those college football conferences in which it's a massive thing to meet coaches and you have all these people trying to connect and get jobs and network, it was probably one of the loneliest moments of my life. Like going...
That makes me so sad.
I mean... But
remember how we just talked about how I cry all the time?
I'm able to reflect on that now because I didn't realize it then.
Well, and even at the time, even today, earlier today when we were talking, there was the reality of how vulnerable you had to be.
You have to be extremely vulnerable to be at those places because they have sessions for people to go into, but nobody goes to the sessions. People like sit in the main lobby and they're like talking shop.
It's also not like an atypical conference where people want to chit chat.
No.
They want to go to the person they want to get to.
Yeah, and then also those people that are, I'm going to call it like it is, the top 1% are hanging with the top 1%. Like, I'm not just going to walk in and connect with this so-and-so coach because he doesn't know me and it's just not going to happen. And so you go to these things and you're trying to put on for your family. You're trying to put yourself out there, but you find yourself a lot of time just walking through and just like, dude, what am I doing?
Y'all, and you said this after you went to your first one, which I feel like was even more vulnerable.
Yeah, because I wasn't even in the industry. At least in Nashville, I had some of the coaches that I knew.
An infant.
Yeah, you had an infant.
She was under 1 year old.
1 year old. Flew to Charlotte.
Rented
a car, flew on a flight, all the things. Yes.
What in the world was I thinking saying yes?
Yep.
Anyway, it all worked out. But you said after that one, you said that it is it's live Tinder and hoping somebody swipes right.
Yes, it is.
So how terrifying it is to make your Tinder profile pretend like all you've got is how you look and how you speak, and then you have to swipe right. It is like going into a bar without the alcohol.
Yes, and you're trying to hope that you see someone that connects you, that shakes your hand, and introduces you to somebody else. And again, everybody has...
And you have to go up to them to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
So you can't just stand there. I would crumble.
I mean, looking back on it, like I said, reflecting on this 100th episode and reflecting on what we've been through, I was just like, man, that was a very lonely and vulnerable time for me.
But also at the same time, Stephen, I think you need to applaud yourself for even doing that.
Yeah. I mean,
because how many people would be like, I'm good. I wouldn't do it.
I mean, a lot of people won't do it.
You could not pay me to do that.
Yeah.
After the Nashville one 3 years ago, you said, I want you to come next year. False. No. Meow. Not happening.
Not happening.
They have a thing for coaches' wives.
Yeah,
like,
there's a thing for coaches' wives.
What do you want me to do there?
While you're there, you do the same thing. You're going to go to the coaches' wives section, and you're going to.
And I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but no, like I said, like you have these moments, and you just kind of you realize how much you have grown or changed, and you look back. Like in that moment, I would have never said I was lonely and vulnerable. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm fine. But now, years later, I'm like, dude, that was a lot. And yes, everything is continuing to work out like it's planned to with God's will, but at the same time, you're just like, man, that took a lot to do that. It also took a lot out of me.
Healing and wellness and motivation is huge for the Mizell Show. And recently we had New Day Healing and Wellness on the podcast. We are super, super excited to be able to offer you guys a discount code under the name Mizell. If you hop into New Day Healing and Wellness, you can go to Red Light, you can go to the sauna, you can do the salt booth. They have so many different things to offer, and we're just so excited for you guys to be able to experience some wellness of your own. Well, and I think after 100 episodes of this podcast, the podcast has not taken a lot out of us.
No.
But when you think of the hours that we have spent on this beautiful podcast called The Mizell Show, the biggest benefit is sharing everything with the people that actually listen. But I also think that the communication that we're forced to have between us has strengthened our marriage. And I don't know that without the podcast that you would have seen you needed to make a change, or that I would have seen the changes I needed to make.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And I think the thing about it is, it's not so much we're doing it for the listeners or doing it for the people who are listening, whatever you want to call it. It's us articulating out loud and really working through some of the dialogue as through some of the things that we see. And yeah, without this podcast, there are a lot of things that I don't think we would ever take a pause and reflect on and really discuss. Because when you sit down and have these moments, like, all right, what should we talk about this week? You're like, oh, this happened, or I saw this. You're like, okay, now I have to sit here and articulate and talk through some things that I might not ever talk through, i.e. during the holidays. We are coming home from Adele's basketball practice, and Alana met us at the gym. And so we then decided to go over to New Day. Shout out to New Day, another one of our guests on our 100 episodes. Appreciate them. They had a holiday party, so we drove separate cars, and Briggs loved that kid to death, but he is a talker, and he just randomly brings things up. Like, he will go from...
Since the second he wakes up to
he will talk about everything from Pearl Harbor to Bugattis to atomic bombs to his best friends in class.
And yes, our 5-year-old knows what an atomic bomb is.
Yes, because we talked about D-Day.
It's history.
And so with that being said, he's in the car with Alana, and he's just word counting, just talking.
This is pre-Christmas.
Pre-Christmas. And he randomly says to Alana, well, Mom, Santa can't be black, right? And Alana was like, why can't he be black?
No, I was like, here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
And so she asked the question. She asked the question to Briggs.
Why can't he be black?
Why can't he be black? Well, if he's black, people are going to think he's an intruder. And I died laughing.
Steven laughs after the fact. I'm in the car. I'm driving, y'all, trying to not hit something.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so what about if he's white? Well, he could just walk in the front door and nobody would think anything about it.
He'd just be welcomed. What?
And I just, I wish I could hear other people listening to this right now because it's so interesting.
We've told this story
when
before.
We've told this
Yeah.
story to handfuls of people.
Their reaction from all
The
people.
reaction, depending on the group
Yep.
and depending on the color of skin, narrates the reaction.
For sure.
So far, it's a table of black people. Everybody's dying laughing, thinking it's hysterical. Because they have come through life realizing that's a coping mechanism and a reality of their lives.
Exactly. Yes.
To understand that Santa can't be black.
Yeah.
Because to everybody, Santa is an intruder if he's black.
He's black.
Which, let's get real, Santa is an intruder. He's coming down your chimney.
He's coming down your chimney. He's literally breaking in your house, eating your food, and he may or may not be taking gifts while dropping gifts off.
Yeah, we don't know. Is he the Grinch? Is he Santa? We don't know.
Exactly.
It can't be green. Anyway, so that is a narrative within the black culture that it's like, oh my gosh, he sees it at 5, but like you don't put together that he sees it at 5.
He sees it and feels it, and that's something that, you say, oh, what do you have this kid watching? What's he listening to? We monitor our kids' TV,
but we also intentionally have these conversations, even with a 5-year-old.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Because we don't have a choice.
No choice. And that's why, and this is saying this because we have intentionally paused episodes of shows like The Wonder Years, the new one on Disney. We've paused shows.
Okay, The Wonder Years is a fantastic example of something you can narrate and talk through.
Yes.
It is black culture.
Yes.
It is black culture in the South.
In the 60s.
It is black culture
yes.
that goes up to New York in a little bit.
Yeah.
It's black culture that travels together. It's
Yes.
black culture that has a musician in the family, and then the mom is actually working in a time when the moms didn't always work.
Yes.
It's during Vietnam.
Yep.
It talks about all these woven in histories, and you actually get to see black culture without the narrative of our current situation
Yes.
of Black Lives Matter, which Black Lives Matter then, they will always matter. But it's before the movement happened.
Yes.
It's when segregation was more prevalent. And the ability to marry interracially had just gotten overturned about 3 years prior in 1957 in Loving versus Virginia.
Yeah.
So all of that is woven in. But we say that because also the white families that we've told this story to, they are aghast. They are like, you're a 5-year-old? Sweet Briggs. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
If your kids are not having this conversation and you have a whole white family, then you need to have the chat.
Yeah.
We have a little chit chat.
And another good show, I just looked it up on Netflix, is Family Reunion.
We mentioned it before.
So
that's more like
2023.
it's more like a Cosby's, but modernized.
Modernized, yeah.
And we're going to talk about it.
Yes.
There's specifically an episode where the 2 black boys get targeted because they're out actually trying to rake leaves or something like that.
Yes.
Trying to help around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they get targeted by police officers and get taken home. And it's a thing. They are young black boys.
Yes.
Not much older than my son.
Yeah.
And so if my son, Briggs, who is biracial, were out walking around with his little friend who is either black or biracial, both those kids in that show are pretty bright skinned.
Yeah.
They're out walking around. They could definitely get picked up by a police officer.
Could be.
It can happen.
Can happen.
If you are in an all-white family, bless you, that is your choice. Like, I'm not saying go marry some black guy, even though they're fantastic. Actually, not all of them. Mine is. You can have them. Anyway, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to use these shows that are funny and they're for kids and they're in a different narrative to where you can open the doors and have the conversation.
Yes, and don't be afraid to let them watch those shows and see. And we're not saying go watch a documentary on something that's way too much for a kid, but we're just saying like the fact that our 5-year-old was able to see and feel that. And then what Alana, in our household, I'll call it like it is, Alana's the articulator. She's the breaker downer. She's let's sit down and talk through this. I will go back and I'll have a conversation with the kids, but it's not going to be as articulate as Alana is able to, as I'm able to. And so she was able to talk to Briggs about it. And then it goes back to, the situation where, my dad has a security company and one day a while back, someone tried to break into his truck and unfortunately it was a black guy. So Briggs did put 2 and 2 together like, oh, he's an intruder trying to break into Pawpaw's truck, And so it's the things that he is recognizing. He's recognizing it and he's seeing it at school.
But that is his world.
It's his world. It is his world.
And
yes.
I think that not that this episode is about our 100, but what is so interwoven in the Mizell
But this is
show
what the yes.
is a narrative of diversity and inclusion in the space to have these conversations.
You have to.
And
the challenge.
reality
Yeah.
is that many white families need to realize that they don't have to have this conversation with their 5-year-old.
No.
Or ever.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Alana had a conversation. We try to keep our friends and family nameless on this podcast, but she had a really good conversation, and with her friend, she's white, and she basically said that crushes me because I know my son will never have to experience anything like this.
But at the same time, my response to that was, then be grateful he doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
Every time that you are able to let your son leave your house without thinking twice about where he's going, make sure to remind him that if somebody stops him to mind his P's and Q's, be, mindful, know where you are, don't put your hood up while you're walking. Be grateful that you don't have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it right.
Let's make it right.
But this sense of gratitude in the ability to have the conversation with your children, and even if you want us to help with that, we are more than willing to do that.
It's a fine line, too, though, to make sure that you're grateful, but also you teach them that they don't feel privileged. Like, they are privileged, but the fact that you have to let them see how the other world, how the world lives, because in that scenario, yes, you're grateful your kid doesn't have to do that, but they need to be educated about how others have to walk this world.
Which,
you know what I mean?
Sharing stories like the one we just said is important.
Yeah.
Even asking the question, what I try to do with the kids is just ask questions.
Yeah.
And then they kind of end up narrating out the response that they are needing, and you can kind of piece it all together. Sissy Goff is a great person to kind of help guide this. She's a children's counselor out of Nashville, but has a podcast as well. Anyway, on top of that, what would be a great question if you're wanting to ask this is, do you think Santa is white or black?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Somebody knows. Yeah.
And if you're a believer, do you think Christ is white or black?
Yeah.
Okay. Then from there, they answer white or black. Why do you think that?
Yeah.
What if he's the opposite?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Why do you think that can't happen? And then that's going to tell you a whole lot about how things are playing in their heads, or if they've even thought about it at all. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of children, it's just opening up the question for them to think about the opposite of what they automatically think.
Yes.
For Briggs, I was like, but what if he is black? Well, he can't be. He's an intruder then. But what if he is? Well, he better be careful because the police are going to get him. I was like, right. If he's white or black, he's got to be careful.
Yeah.
He's
very
like,
true.
yeah. So that's kind of how we ended it, amongst talking about, more things later on. But you also don't want to dwell on that scenario.
No.
Another great way to do this is, watch those shows. Another great book is Just Ask. Mm-hmm. It's a children's book. I can't remember who it was written by. But I think we underestimate the power of children's books.
Yes.
And I actually wrote this on a post today when somebody was asking for book recommendations. I gave a handful of self-help books that I really like, by a couple from Brene Brown, Green Lights. You guys have all heard them all. But then after that, I suggested some children's books because they're simplified. Oh yeah, it's from I can't pronounce her name. It's fine.
First name Sonia. Can't pronounce her last name.
I
but yes.
should, because she was a justice, but I cannot remember how to say her name. Anyway, so what I think we try to make so complex is the fact that we're adults. It is a complex world. But if we were to kind of pull back some of that, I think reading some children's books that are on the topic of race and diversity, that are on the topic of trying to have some inclusion. There are so many out right now. And there's a great one. Just Ask is a great one. There's one about the Birmingham Zoo and when desegregation happened and black families were able to go there. I think I've posted about all of those on my Instagram. I know I have a reel specifically about children's books. But children's books allow you to kind of pull back the curtain and for yourself to see if you have personal unconscious bias that you're not realizing, or if you need to use those to leverage the conversations with your children.
No. I think, as I said, that's something that, we continue to do, and it's amazing.
Now that we've kind of gone on that diversity track and health track and whatever, what would you say is if you were to say one takeaway that you learned from doing 100 episodes of The Mizell Show, what would you say?
My takeaway would be, man, I think my biggest takeaway would be that this podcast, I mean, it's so many things I could say, but I'm going to say it has taught me how to compassionately love you in this amazing, crazy journey that we have in life.
Okay, I'm not trying to get emotional again. I've already cried 3 times today.
Yeah, you got a couple more of you. But no, I mean, just
You
the.
just said you got a couple more.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, we have been through a lot since
Yeah.
November 2020. And we have shared so much with this podcast in terms of helping others grow, but helping us grow, helping people into our lives. And guys, this podcast has been a roller coaster. We've been on this ride in which we're going to monetize. It's going to make us a bunch of money. It's like, no, this is not us. This is something we just want to do and enjoy. We want to put out some merch. We want you guys to enjoy the Mizell Village, and that's just what it is. Could it be more? It probably could be more. But right
If somebody
now,
wants to do that for us, have at it.
yeah,
We just
give
don't
us
have
a
the
call.
bandwidth
We
for
don't
that.
mind doing that. But no, but that's what I would say.
So on that note, this is our last episode. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness, no, we have a lot
just
of good
kidding.
things planned for 2024.
We have tons left in the arsenal. We have some wellness episodes that are going to be coming out. We have a feature with a talent acquisition specialist as we start to kind of gleam in and out of recession in the American economy.
We can't talk about 2024. You got to tell us what you think about the podcast.
Oh, what,
You got to be on
what
the hook.
I've
Yeah,
learned
yes.
the 100.
All those are beautiful. I will say that.
That's
but,
cute.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cute, but I'm not getting
Yeah.
out of that.
No, you're not.
Oh, I would say that the podcast has taught me that I don't have to be absolutely perfect at everything I release. And that's really hard for me. I'm a
Yes.
perfectionist. If it's out there in the interwebs, I'm going to be a perfectionist, but also not tying it to let me do this, and kind of just keeping it and kind of keeping the podcast in its bubble of sanctuary. It's tricky when you want to grow. I was actually talking with a friend about this earlier today. When you want to grow yourself, your profession, your career, you have to actually be very narrowly focused on what grow means.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at, say, a tree, I'm literally looking outside. You're looking at a tree and it hasn't gotten any higher, but it's grown out and the roots have gotten deeper. Does that mean the tree hasn't grown all year? Well, no.
You just didn't see it.
You just didn't see it happening. But and then if it doesn't have strong enough roots and doesn't have a strong enough foundation and know where it wants to go, if it grows too high before its roots are ready, it'll just die. And I think that happens so much in brands and relationships and companies and marriages, especially as you add kids and don't really think about the potential ramifications, and vice versa, not having kids and kind of the spell of that resentment. If you don't think about how you want to grow, then you will miss the beauty of the growth.
Oh, and we're done. And we're done. That's it. 100 episodes. Thank you guys for coming, and we sign off. Yes, but no, this is 100 episodes. We are so happy for we call you guys fans at first, supporters, family. Now you're the Mizell Village, and we appreciate you. You know, keep listening, keep tuning in. Like Alana mentioned, a lot of amazing things coming for 2024, and we're glad you guys can be a part of it.
So if you guys are enjoying this, definitely leave us a review. Give us the feedback. If there's something you guys want us to talk about, reach out to us on our website at themizellshow.com. There is a contact section. You can put it in there. We would love to hear about it. Or you can always go over to Instagram at The Mizell Show. Also, as always, don't forget to screenshot this episode and just add it to your stories and tag us on Instagram, on Facebook at The Mizell Show. Thanks, guys. Are you loving The Mizell Show? Well, we love you all, And did you know that you can have me and Steven talk to your team or a group of 25 of your friends? All it takes is 25 people showing up on either a Zoom call, a Facebook Live, or really anywhere. Hopefully in person sooner rather than later. But how do you get us? So all you have to do is email themizellshow@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on Instagram @themizellshow.